There's something about success that most people never realize. It's not a lack of information that holds us back. It's not a shortage of advice or opportunities. The real problem is flawed thinking. In a world flooded with noise, driven by emotion and hype, where fortunes are made and lost in days, the only true edge is how you think. Not what you know, but how you process the world. That's what Charlie Munger understood better than anyone. While others chased stock tips or market trends, Munger spent decades crafting something far more powerful, a mental operating system built on timeless principles from the smartest minds across disciplines. He called them mental models. Munger didn't try to outguess the market. He didn't waste time predicting short-term movements. Instead, he asked better questions. What am I missing? What bias might be blinding me? What does the data not say and why? He thought in systems, probabilities, incentives, psychology. He wasn't playing the same game as the crowd. He was playing the long game with better tools. The brilliance of mental models is that they come from everywhere. Biology teaches us about adaptation. Physics teaches us about leverage. Psychology teaches us how we lie to ourselves. Economics teaches us about trade-offs. No single model is enough, but when you combine many and use them with clarity, you begin to see the invisible rules behind complex situations. Munger believed you don't need to be a genius to succeed. You just need a better map. A map made of ideas that survive reality, not just textbooks. Mental models are not secrets for the elite. They are available to anyone willing to think harder, dig deeper, and stop settling for surface answers. And that's why Charlie Munger became a legend. Not because he chased money, but because he mastered clarity in a world built on confusion. If most people run toward the light, Charlie Munger walks toward the shadow. While the world asks, "How can I succeed?" Munger flips the question on its head and asks, "How can I fail?" This is the essence of one of his most powerful mental models, inversion. Inversion thinking is not natural. Our brains are wired to pursue desires, to chase goals, to run toward the future. But Munger teaches that to see clearly, you must sometimes think backward. He once said, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." It sounds like a joke, but it's a weaponized form of logic. Imagine you want to be wealthy. Instead of listing success strategies, invert the problem. How do people stay poor? They overspend. They chase get-rich-quick schemes. They ignore compounding. They lack discipline. Once you identify the traps, avoiding them becomes a shortcut to your goal. This simple shift from how to win to how to avoid losing changes everything. Inversion forces you to uncover blind spots. It makes you think about risk. It brings hidden flaws to the surface. And more importantly, it humbles you. Because when you start from failure, you stop assuming success is easy or guaranteed. Munger applied inversion to everything. In investing, he didn't obsess over how to make money. He studied how people lost money. He looked for companies with weak incentives, bad management, or unsustainable models, and simply avoided them. In life, he didn't ask how to be happy. He asked what made people miserable: addiction, envy, resentment, and poor character. And then he built a life designed to stay far from those poisons. This mindset is brutal. It requires honesty, and honesty is rare. Most people don't want to confront the ugly truths about what might go wrong. But Munger believed that if you want to win in the real world, not in theory, you have to see the world as it truly is, especially the parts that are uncomfortable. Inversion also gives you clarity under pressure. When others panic, you calmly ask, "What would I regret most if I acted now?" When others are paralyzed by complexity, you simplify by asking, "What are the obvious ways this could blow up?" It sharpens your edge, especially when others are clouded by emotions. There is a quiet confidence that comes from mastering inversion. You stop chasing every shiny opportunity. You stop rushing into decisions. You develop a sense of what not to do, and that alone can save you from ruin. As Munger said, it is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. Inversion is not pessimism. It's realism sharpened into a habit. It's the ability to walk through a decision and see it from the other side, from the failure, from the regret, from the collapse, and then navigate back to safety. While the world builds castles in the sky, inversion checks the foundation. The truth is, Most people fail not because they didn't know what to do, but because they never asked what could destroy them. Munger's genius was not just in what he pursued, but in what he avoided. He mastered the art of subtraction, removing stupidity, removing risk, removing illusions. And in the space that remained, clarity emerged. This is the power of inversion. And once you learn to think this way, you'll never see problems the same way again. Charlie Munger once said, "If you want to avoid irrationality, it helps to understand the ways in which humans are hardwired to be irrational." It's not enough to be smart. You have to be aware of how your mind betrays you. And for Munger, that meant mastering the psychology of human misjudgment, a brutal but necessary map of how even the most intelligent people make terrible decisions. Most people believe they think logically. They believe that with enough data, enough reasoning, and enough willpower, they'll come to the right conclusion. Munger didn't buy that for a second. He believed the mind is a machine full of built-in bugs, and unless you know where those bugs are, they will control you. He didn't just study cognitive biases, he cataloged them. Obsession, authority bias, social proof, incentive bias, commitment and consistency bias, loss aversion, liking distortion. The list is long, and every item on it has one thing in common. It can destroy sound judgment without you realizing it. Think about authority bias. A person in a suit says something confidently and you stop thinking for yourself. Or consider social proof. If the crowd is doing it, it must be right. Right? Not to Munger. He understood that the majority is often wrong, especially in markets, especially when emotions run high. He trained himself to be skeptical of groupthink, to stand still when others ran, and to ask, what if everyone is wrong? Incentives, he believed, were the most powerful force of all. Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome. People don't do what's right, they do what they're rewarded for. Misaligned incentives are like invisible currents pulling behavior in disastrous directions. Munger looked at every business, every policy, every person through the lens of, what are they really motivated to do? And then there's the most dangerous bias of all, denial. The refusal to see what's clearly in front of you because it threatens your ego, your worldview, your identity. Denial is why people hold losing stocks, why they stay in toxic environments, why they ignore inconvenient truths. Munger trained himself to cut through denial with brutal clarity. He didn't ask what he wanted to be true. He asked what was true, no matter how uncomfortable. This deep awareness of misjudgment didn't make Munger cynical. It made him cautious. It made him humble. He knew that no one, including himself, was immune. So he built mental systems, checklists, questions, filters, to catch his thinking before it could lead him astray. He practiced self-doubt as a discipline, not a weakness. Most people think success comes from big ideas, bold moves, and fast decisions. But Munger believed success often comes from avoiding stupidity, from slowing down, from asking, what bias might be working on me right now? That one question, simple but powerful, can save decades of pain. Understanding the psychology of human misjudgment isn't a theory for Munger. It's a survival skill in business, in investing, in life, because the battlefield isn't just out there in the market, it's in your mind. And if you don't control it, it will control you. This is why Munger didn't chase brilliance. He chased clarity. Because when you know how your mind tricks you, you can stop being the victim of your own intelligence. And finally, start thinking like a master. Most people look at the world through a single lens, a business lens, a technical lens, a political lens, and then they wonder why their decisions keep falling apart. Charlie Munger never made that mistake. He knew that if all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, and sooner or later, that limited thinking will cost you everything. Munger built something else entirely, a latticework of mental models, a mental toolkit forged from the strongest ideas across the fields of biology, physics, mathematics, psychology, engineering, and economics. He didn't want just one way to think, he wanted 100, because in a complex world, a narrow mind is a dangerous thing. When a decision came to him, he didn't ask, what's the fastest answer? He asked, which mental models apply here? He would zoom out, scan across disciplines, and run reality through filters until the noise faded and the structure revealed itself. First principles thinking, margin of safety, redundancy, feedback loops, second-order consequences, evolution. Incentives, probabilistic reasoning, each idea a lens, each lens revealing what others couldn't see. It's like having X-ray vision for reality. While the average person sees what's obvious, Munger sees what's invisible. He sees the trade-offs people ignore. He sees the unintended consequences buried in good intentions. He sees where this decision leads, not just now, but 5 steps later. And that's how he stays ahead, not by moving faster, but by seeing deeper. The power of multiple models is not just additive, it's exponential. One model gives you a glimpse. 10 models give you a map. And when these models overlap, they reveal patterns others miss entirely. A feedback loop in nature becomes a business moat. A thermodynamic principle becomes a lesson in market behavior. A psychological trap becomes a warning sign in negotiation. This is the brilliance of Munger's mind. He doesn't just use knowledge, he weaves it. He combines simplicity and depth. He uses the hard-earned truths from one discipline to solve problems in another. And that's why he wins where others guess. That's why he sees clarity where others drown in complexity. He called it worldly wisdom. The idea that to make sound decisions, you must understand the world as it truly is, not just from one angle, but from many. And this isn't abstract philosophy. It's raw power. It's the difference between reacting and anticipating, between following trends and setting them, between being lucky and being wise. In a world obsessed with speed, Munger built a fortress of thought. While others rushed to action, he paused to think. While others jumped on hype, he questioned the foundation. He knew that lasting success doesn't come from having better answers. It comes from asking better questions, using better models, and seeing the game beneath the game. And that is how Charlie Munger turned thinking itself into a competitive advantage. Not just a skill, but a system. Not just intelligence, but insight. In a noisy world, he became a quiet master, one mental model at a time. In the end, Charlie Munger didn't just leave behind billions. He left behind blueprints for thinking, for deciding, for living. His true wealth was never measured in stocks or assets, but in clarity, discipline, and timeless mental leverage. And the best part? It's all usable, right now, by you, by anyone willing to think like him. Because Munger's genius wasn't built on genius alone. It was built on practice, on daily decisions, on a relentless refusal to think sloppily. You don't need to be a billionaire to apply his models. You just need to slow down, to observe, to ask better questions, to read, not just for answers, but for frameworks. To treat your mind like a machine, one that constantly needs upgrading. Every time you pause before reacting, you're using Munger's thinking. Every time you ask, what am I missing? Or what's the incentive here? You're walking in his footsteps. Every time you cross-check an idea with multiple disciplines, you're building your own lattice work. And every time you choose truth over ego, rationality over emotion, system over impulse, you're keeping Munger's legacy alive. We live in a world addicted to shortcuts, hacks, hype, noise. But Charlie Munger stood for the opposite. He stood for patience, for long games, for independent thinking. He didn't shout, he didn't chase, he built, quietly, intelligently, relentlessly. And now his models, mental and moral, are yours to carry forward. So the question is no longer, how did Charlie Munger think? The question is, will you? If you found this valuable, if you believe thinking is the edge, then don't just scroll. Subscribe to Trading Mindset Lab, where we turn timeless mental models into real-world tools. Because markets change, trends fade, but mindset, that compounds forever. Let's think sharper. Let's decide smarter. Let's build a mind that wins. Join us. The lab is open.